Hi, my name is Miranda Floyd. I am a mental health ambassador for the Gala. Initially, my story kind of starts in 2001 on September 9th. 2 days before 9/11, my family experienced a gut-wrenching loss when we lost my baby brother, Seth, to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Initially, when anyone dies that you love, you get this numb feeling and you go through the stages of grief, which are normal. But when it comes to suicide, for me, and particularly, you go through the phase of anger a lot longer. You're extremely angry and you don't know how to process it. It's a lot different than a death of a loved one or, a friend that's had a medical illness such as cancer or they've been in a car accident. Those are all gut-wrenching losses. But when you deal with suicide, you deal with a pain from an anger point of view that is very hard to deal with. So after he passed away, we, of course, were flooded with the questions of, didn't you see there was a problem? Didn't you know anything was wrong? And the answer is no. Because if we would have taken every resource we had to get him the help he needed. But 9 times out of 10, you will find that suicidal individuals, and I've learned this through my training as a nurse and as a nurse practitioner, are not the ones that always ask for help. And if they do, that's great. But sometimes they're the life of the party. They're the kids or the adults that smile everywhere they go. They give out more hugs and they give out high fives. And that's how they project their pain, is by soothing other people. And you don't always see the amount of pain they're in. After my brother died, I kind of went down a bad path. I was so angry I didn't care whether I honestly lived or died. I lost a lot of weight, got down I think to 105 pounds, was drinking more than any person should drink. But it wasn't until I got into nursing school that I realized I did see signs in my brother. I just wasn't trained on how to identify those. And I think in general, laypersons aren't. It's not enough to ask somebody if they're okay. You have to ask the next question. If someone says they're not okay and they're going through their story of what's going on in their life, you have to be willing to ask, are you thinking about harming yourself? You have to be willing, if they say yes, to ask the next question. What do you have a plan? And then you have to go further. If they say, yes, I have a plan, you have to assess lethality and you have to assess their access to that plan. And I think there's such a stigma around suicide and around mental health that we're afraid to ask those questions. We're not afraid to ask a cancer patient how their treatment's going. We're in general not afraid to ask somebody that has heart failure, how are you feeling today? But when it comes to mental health, we kind of take a back seat. And that's where this is so important to me, that we get the message across that we have to move forward. We have to improve access to mental health. We have to improve the teaching that we're doing, not only for our lay people, but for our medical providers. I feel sometimes we put everything off to psychology or to mental health. And really, as an orthopedic nurse practitioner, I see it every day in my clinic. Physical pain can cause a significant amount of depression. And that depression escalates, especially when you can't find any answers for your physical pain. There's a chemical imbalance that occurs, and then nobody's treating that. We just keep putting them on steroids or keep putting them on medication for their pain when we're really not treating the root of the problem potentially. So I feel in general we need, as medical professionals, as mental health providers, as laypersons, as friends, as family members, to just dig deeper into the problems and make sure that we're willing to sit and listen and not just assume that when they say I'm okay, that the rest of their story matches them saying they're not okay. We have to start reading body language and doing things like that. I can name, and I'm not going to obviously, at least 20 people in my life that I've either taken care of from a medical standpoint, flight nursing, that have either attempted suicide or have committed suicide. And I'm 42 years old. That's a lot of people, and I think you would be hard-pressed to find one person in your life that hasn't had the experience of someone they're close to that's committed suicide. So moving forward, we have to take the stigma away that surrounds suicide and mental health diseases. We have to start treating them more like any other medical condition we treat: cancer, hypertension, heart failure, all of them. We can't give it a special treatment as far as not talking about it. We can't treat it as if it is something we should not be discussing. We have to be open and we have to not be afraid to talk about it. So my hope is that by doing this, that nobody else has to experience the loss. Nothing is ever the same. It's forever changed. There's a hole, there's still anger, and my why is to try to prevent parents like mine, who are wonderful people, from ever having to go through something like this. Family members from not losing people they love, just because they may not have recognized the signs, even though they may have been there, may not have been there, and to have the feeling that they could have tried, but they didn't. I want people to not have to experience that level of pain.